Yo, just
Welcome back, man. It's the Hardwood Report, man. We're here to talk some basketball. We finally did it. We finally did it. We got our first guest on the show, man. Armin. Sorry if I mispronounced it. I hope I pronounced it right. Armand.
Armand,
My
fam.
mistake.
It's okay.
Brainstorming Basketball
I got you.
Podcast. Here to join us and talk some hoops today. So I'm gonna get you a little 2 3 minutes. Talk about your show. Come on, let's do it.
Yeah, well, first of all, long time coming. We've been scheduling this for probably close to a month now. It's an honor to be here with you guys. And yeah, my show is pretty similar to your guys' show. Sometimes I do solo episodes. If friends want to be on there, I'll have them on. And it's just the same thing. We're all the same in our love for basketball. And I'm a diehard Chicago Bulls fan. I was just mentioning that to you guys a second ago. And it is a rough journey, but it makes it exciting. It's never easy for us. So yeah, on my podcast, sometimes I'll vent about how much I dislike being a Bulls fan and just talk about the NBA. And again, very, very grateful to be here. Thank you guys.
Thank you for joining, man. This means a lot, especially as being the first guest. This is a milestone. You were here when we didn't have nothing, so when we get to the top, you can say that you saw it from the beginning, right? Um, again, so we're just gonna dive
Yes,
right
sir.
into it. Not really waste too much time. So let's start off with the first subject. Actually, no. Let me talk to the guys. Kev, Chris, how you guys been, man? Long time no talk.
It's good to be back. Super excited about this pod. To respond to Armand as a Raptor fan, it's been smooth sailing for the past 2 years, whatever it's been. So we know the grind. We know what it's like to come to to struggle for years. And if you ever get to the top, I don't see it. I don't see it happening. But if you do, it'll feel good.
Chris, talk to me.
I hear that still because I'm a Raptor and Philly. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, we, it didn't get any worse than what Philly was going through when I was in high school. So, there's no, yeah, it doesn't get worse than that. But now we got two, future NBA superstars. So, it is what it is. But yeah, yo, excited for the pod, trying to get into it and, hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, let's dig into it, man. I'm so excited, man. I was even skipping over the regular protocol, man. Let's do this. So first question I got on the docket, and I'll pose it to anybody. Feel free to answer. Um, is the East a foregone conclusion? I know that's a bit of a general question, but just given how the Brooklyn Nets have played recently, how poorly, relatively speaking, the Bucks have been playing, and obviously Sixers hold the number one seed. It looks pretty nice at the top, but at the bottom, it seems pretty wide open, just given the lack of competition and some of the lackluster records. So I'll pose a question to anybody: do you think it's over with? Do you think we're just looking at these top three teams or top two teams, depending on how you want to look at it?
I'm not ready to champion the Nets yet. For me, they've been great without KD, and I don't expect them to be any worse. But just looking at DeAndre Jordan in the middle is terrible. Man. He's not, and he's not good. He's not getting any better, and I don't see any options. The only options we've heard of are DeMarcus Cousins, and we know that's not working. So for me, I look at them and I say that might be their weak spot. They can score whenever they want, but I'm still looking at the defense. This, I think it was a 6 game or maybe 8 game winning streak, isn't enough for me to champion them. But I don't believe in anyone else necessarily. Like I don't believe in Philly. I'll let Chris, do his thing on that one. I don't believe in the Bucks. I definitely don't believe in the Bucks. And the Celtics have struggled, and I think the Raptors are. We don't have that guy that can take us there. So in one sense, I don't think they're a championship team yet, but I just don't see any competition. So I'm leaning towards foregone conclusion.
Well,
It's not a foregone conclusion. And to say a foregone conclusion, you would have to put them on the, Golden State Warriors level. You know what I'm saying? Like when the Golden State Warriors were the Golden State Warriors with KD. That was a foregone conclusion if you ever saw one. You can't call this a foregone conclusion because we have questions. We didn't have no questions when it came to Golden State. We knew they were going to be there. It was just a matter of can LeBron do what he did when he came back 3-1 to win? Can he pull off a superhero effort and upset that type of mail cart? But we knew they were going to be there. You know what I'm saying? This one you don't. Like yes, they can score whenever they want, But at the same time, we also know that they have defensive liabilities on the roster. And the good thing about NBA basketball is there's other NBA players that can also score, you know what I'm saying? And score proficiently as well. So if you're playing zero defense and another team can defend Philly, and also they have players like Embiid, like a Tobias Harris in his, career year, all of a sudden Ben Simmons is being more aggressive and he's trying to, really take it to people. He's upped his scoring in the last month. Like, come on, bro. Like, it's not a foregone conclusion. Like, I understand you could paint them as the favorite. You do that if you want to do that. It's not for me, but I'm not going to criticize you for that. Foregone conclusion, we got to slow it down.
I I agree with both of you in parts. I think that the East is extremely weak. If there was one contender, like a serious contender to Brooklyn, I would say not a foregone conclusion. I'm not a huge believer in any other team, which makes it by default for me a foregone conclusion. But I also agree that their defense is going to be a huge question mark. The one thing that I think is surprising to me is how close knit of a team they are, like off the bat, like off the jump. One of their first games, the guys they swung it to Joe Harris, and everybody was like, "Yeah, shoot it, Joe," or something like that. I'm like, how do you guys already like each other this much? You guys just met. I mean, KD, Harden, and Kyrie have been together before in different settings, but in that setting, to have that kind of chemistry, that's the type of stuff you need to win a championship. And I just don't see that same level of chemistry. Philly's growing their chemistry for sure. But teams like Milwaukee, still something is like fishy. Boston obviously has chemistry issues. So yes, I think foregone conclusion. Sadly, foregone conclusion.
Um, Me personally, I'm not ready to say it's a foregone. Go ahead.
So hold on. So would man's put their money on it right now? Right? I don't know what the
Obviously, I'm
odds
not
are.
putting my money on one
So
through
then
eight.
it's
Like,
not a foregone conclusion then.
nah.
Fam, if it's a
There's
foregone
eight other
conclusion,
teams
put
making the
if
playoffs, man.
fam, if it do you know what foregone conclusion actually means? If it's a foregone conclusion, put your bread
You're asking
down.
me if I'm putting equal odds on the Nets? No, but if,
No, I'm saying, yo, walk to walk to your computer, open Bet 365 or whatever the thing that app is called, whatever it is, and put your bread down. If it's really a foregone conclusion, if you're not
all right,
doing
listen,
that, it's not.
nah, but I made it clear I'm not confident in saying that. But who else?
But
Someone has
here's
to
the
beat
thing,
them,
though.
right? We
Here's
can
the thing.
go ahead, Robs.
I would love to say it's a foregone conclusion, just based on the top end talent that Brooklyn has. You're not gonna beat those three guys, but we've seen this in the past. Miami didn't win it the first year they clicked up, right? So I don't think that team is as good as that Heat team. So even if they have the top end talent, that doesn't mean it's all gonna gel when it comes time to really buckle down and win a championship game. I don't think they have that, which is why I'm not ready to say it's a foregone conclusion. But the East is not looking bright. Like, it's not looking bright at all. Milwaukee, as you said, is looking really mysterious. Granted, Drew Holiday's been out, but at the same time, I think we all fell out of love with Milwaukee a couple times now. Philly, nobody here truly believes that Philly should be a number one seed, or it is.
Watch your mouth, fam.
You don't
I
Watch
don't
your
believe it.
mouth.
believe it.
You
I
don't
don't
believe
believe
Watch
it.
your mouth. Of
You
course
don't
I
believe
believe it. I've been saying the same thing for months now. What do you mean I don't believe
for
it?
years. Make that clear. For years, you've been saying things, and they've been disappointed.
I,
Don't turn it to
but
months.
don't tell me I
Don't
don't
Alright.
believe it. You can
don't.
call it delusional, but you don't tell me I don't believe
I-
it.
It is what it is.
Alright,
But
you're
I
done.
guess what I'm trying to say is that even of the four teams that even have a positive record, right? Because I think Raptors are sitting at 500, so there's only three teams above 500. Those teams we have question marks all over the place with. So I'm not ready to call it a foregone conclusion because although I know Brooklyn has the top and talent to do it, I don't know if they'll be able to do it when it all clicks up. And we already know how Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden are, right? Two of them are head cases. One man disappears in the playoffs. I don't know what more can be said about that, right?
Here's the thing, though. Like the Nets, who again? We just spoke about it. For me, I just don't like looking and searching for someone to beat them when I can't find one. Right? You mentioned the Heat. Is there even a Chicago Bulls in this year's playoff race to oppose them like the Chicago Bulls opposed them? What is that? We're talking like maybe 8 years ago. Is there a team like that? Is there a team with MVP Derrick Rose, Carlos Boozer,
We
Joakim Noah?
could
Is there a
liken
team
them
like
to the
that?
Bucks.
Philly. Philly? What are you talking
All right,
about?
bro.
MVP Joel Embiid. You know what I'm saying? All defense, Ben Simmons, all star.
But I
Tobias
told you I don't
Harris.
know. I don't know
Oh
what
my
Joel
god.
Embiid looks like in May, man. It's all cool. 25 games into the season, I just don't know, and I can't put my hat on that. That's all I'm saying. I know, at the very least, Harden and KD are gonna be there. I
To
can't
what
say the same thing
capacity
about
though? To because
Harden.
we
100%, 100% he's gonna be there. At least show up. I don't know what Embiid looks
no
like.
Harden will be there physically.
Right.
All right, we can say that. Like when playoff
Yeah.
time comes around, his physical body will be there. I can guarantee that. Right? Kevin Durant, we don't know. And
Why?
we just don't we don't know because he's already missed a bunch of time, and then you're not going to be able to sit out, during playoff times when the game is more intense and mans actually don't give a fuck whether or not you are healthy or injured. Like right now, mans might have it in their subconscious, like maybe we want to, we're not going to foul KD hard, or we're not going to do certain things subconsciously. You know what I'm saying? That's out the window in the playoff times. So I don't know how that's going to affect him, how playoff basketball will affect his body. And then Kyrie is Kyrie. So like, how do we know? We
Nah.
don't
We know.
know.
Yeah, we don't know. That's a huge question mark. We know that for
We don't know. But I guess just to jump on that, so Sixers do hold the number one seed right now. Go ahead.
Why? All right,
No, you're good. You're
dress
good.
up, dress up,
Well,
dress
just
up,
though,
dress
don't
up.
worry. um, they we're assuming that they had the opportunity to trade for Harden, right? But they are sitting with the number one seed without him. So I guess I'll pose a two-parted question. First, do you think they made a mistake not trading for Harden? And lastly, do you think that Harden will ultimately be their downfall, given the fact that that's probably who they would have to face in the Eastern Conference Finals, assuming that they get there? I'll pose this to you, Armand.
I think the fact that he went to Brooklyn definitely, obviously, can make it their downfall, opposed to if he would have went to any other team really in the East. I think that Ben Simmons is vitally important to the Sixers, and if that was what it was going to take to get Harden, then Harden would have been an upgrade, but enough to overcome the importance that Simmons has to their team. I don't think that it would have put them over the hill necessarily. It probably gets them out of the East. I still think the Lakers probably would have beaten them in the finals. Um, if you're a Sixers fan, though, getting out of the East, that's a massive win. And that, I'm not saying that sarcastically or to be an asshole, but I think that that's a huge step in the right direction. So I know I kind of just backpedaled, but I still would have done that if I was Daryl Morey. But it's too late now. Now you gotta buckle up and dive into your identity as a defensive team and own that. So
For me, I think it's clear when we look at who James Harden went to, right? We're looking at Philly as the only natural competitor for the Nets at the moment, and that's because they added James Harden. That matchup to me looks a lot better if it's James Harden and Embiid versus Kyrie and KD, as opposed to Kyrie, KD, and now James Harden versus Embiid and Ben Simmons. So for that reason and that reason alone, I think it looks bad. It looks like a L. I think it would have been an upgrade. I'm a huge Ben Simmons fan. I think what he does is kind of understated around the league, but I also know that when I look to Philly, I feel like they're going to struggle late game, and they need a guy to create shots who can get his own shot. And I think James Harden would have been that answer for them. And now you have three of those guys on the Nets.
I'm gonna snitch. I'm gonna tell Tobias Harris, his agent, his father, that you can see he come out saying that all of this 2-star Sixers only have 2 stars is bullshit. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm snitching. You mans keep overlooking my guy Tobias Harris in a career year. This is
All right,
crazy.
okay, okay.
But anyways, the question: did they make a mistake? They definitely did not make a mistake, and here's why. Because James Harden, the uncertainty that him coming to Philly would bring wasn't worth giving up a guy like Ben Simmons. We don't know what type of player we would have gotten back. Were we gonna get Houston James Harden, or were we gonna get Brooklyn James Harden? We don't know that. And what we do know is he has a certain level of respect for Kyrie and KD that allows him to change the way he's playing. That's allowing him to say, I'm gonna let you guys rock. I'm gonna be the point guard. I'm gonna distribute and fit in where I fit in. I don't know if that's that type of mentality that he was going to bring to my team. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if he would have been open to, you know, spreading the ball around and deferring in certain respects throughout the game. I just don't know that. And what I do know about Ben Simmons is, at the end of the day, he's probably one of the best five defenders at any position in the league. He's also an all-star, and when he has his mind to it, we've seen it. He can go out and he can go get you buckets. He doesn't have to be a 30, 40 point scorer a night. He just has to get you enough buckets to where the defense has to respect what he does. So because of that, we have a superstar
Yeah,
already
tread
in
lightly,
Ben
tread lightly.
Simmons. There's no reason why
Ah,
he's a superstar. In my, I'm saying he's a superstar because of his two-way play. So we already have that player. There's no reason for us to now trade that player and not know exactly what we're getting back in James Harden. So nah, they didn't make a
So,
mistake.
so,
And
so let me just clarify. So what you're saying is his 2 weeks of mailing it in Houston had you doubting who James Harden was, despite what
no,
he's done in Houston for almost over half a decade.
I'm not talking about when he put the fat suit on. I'm talking about from the very beginning. We said when it comes to James Harden, what are you getting? Are you getting dribble,
Yeah,
dribble, 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 shoot? Or are you gonna get this James Harden?
but I don't
And
think the construction of your team, right? If you trade for James Harden, you wouldn't want this next James Harden. You'd more so want the one that can get you 30 a night.
but no, no, no. But the one that can get me 30 a night off of what he was doing never showed up when it mattered. So why would I want that guy?
He never had Joel Embiid.
So what? He
I,
had
f-
other
I f-
players.
yeah,
He
fair,
had
but
Chris
I think
Paul.
it's
He
just
had Dwight Howard. He had Russell Westbrook. He had other Hall of Fame players. These guys are going to the Hall of Fame.
but hold on. My question to you, Chris, is not both versions of James Harden better than Ben Simmons currently? Whether it's Pitt, what?
No,
So James Harden,
no, I don't believe. Yo, when I listen, we're not talking.
MVP.
We're not talking about James Harden. The talent, and that's it. You have to talk about how James Harden is fitting on my team.
Mhm.
Obviously.
So when you're saying you don't think that James Harden any version is better than Ben Simmons, that question means nothing to me, because what version of James Harden is going to make the Sixers better? Dribble, 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 James Harden. I want Ben Simmons. This James Harden, I would be more malleable to it, but I didn't know I was gonna get that, and nobody knew how James Harden was gonna fit in. So I'm gonna just keep Ben.
James Harden would not defer to Seth Curry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
So
he's
you're
gonna he's
not
gonna be
getting this
dribble,
guy.
dribble, dribble. All right, so he's gonna be
And
dribble, dribble,
to me,
dribble.
I
And then
think,
what
as
am I
Rob
doing
said,
with that?
Armand, I'm gonna let you chime in after I finish, but I think that either version of James Harden is
either.
better than Ben Simmons, and I like Ben Simmons a lot.
I think that God, I again I agree with everybody here. I think that there's bits and pieces that so you look at fit, right? And I do believe that if he was on the Sixers, it would be dribble, dribble, dribble. And that hasn't worked ever for him in the playoffs. So I agree with that. I also look at it like James Harden really has had success with big men that roll to the rim and catch lobs. How is he going to do playing with Joel Embiid, who kind of needs to isolate and dominate in the post, and then Harden's going to be kind of spotting up? That's also kind of a question mark. But at the end of the day, it's about your philosophy. Do you believe talent overrides all that, or do you believe fit is the most important thing? And I think that that's like the biggest question. And with basketball fans, you always debate over talent or fit. I'm a fit guy, so like I think that the fit would have been messy, and that's why I kind of have issues. But guess what? The Lakers fit is kind of messy too. They won the title, right? Like their offense isn't the most poetic, beautiful offense in the world, but they still won the title because of talent. So it it goes both ways. At the end of the day, though, what I want to know is like how now what? Like now what are the Sixers missing? Like what kind of player or archetype of player would they trade for at the deadline to get over the hump?
See, to answer your question, I don't think there's a player that they could trade for that's going to improve their circumstances moving forward. Because I think what they need right now is they need a late game shot maker. We just seen it last night with Embiid go out there and couldn't close it, and that's no fault on him because he's a big man. It's just the nature of the game. That's not how the NBA is played currently. They're not a big man isn't supposed to be in that role or is not the game's not set up in a way for a big man to thrive in that role. For the first 3 quarters, top of the fourth, Embiid could be the most dominant player, but when it boils down to it, you're gonna need a shot maker. Ben's not that guy, obviously. Tobias damn sure isn't that guy. But I don't know who's
But he's hit game winners before.
okay when nothing's on the line though.
Yeah,
Tobias is Yeah,
So is
like
Jeremy
come
Lamb.
on, man.
my
I'm talking about
God.
real deal
Oh my
game
God.
makers or game shot makers that are gonna actually be able to.
So you're talking about like four mans in the entire
Bro.
league. You're talking about the top
Not
end
necessarily.
superstars then.
Yes, and that's why those are the only people winning championships.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's a player that they could
No, it's
trade
not.
for at the deadline that's going to improve their circumstances.
People wouldn't put LeBron as a top end late game
I
shot
definitely
maker.
would. I definitely would.
The consensus wouldn't be, but
I guess what I'm
go
just trying to
ahead.
say is I don't know if
The
there's
numbers speak for
one
themselves.
individual player that they can trade for given their circumstances that's going to come in and all of a sudden put them over the hump. The roster is what it is, and I think they know that themselves. This is the roster we're moving forward with, and yeah, they've gelled a lot better under Doc Rivers than they have under Brett Brown. So I'll give him credit as well. But I don't know if there's a piece just that you could throw in there and say, yeah, this is the key to all our problems. To be honest, I don't know how you guys feel.
Well, Armand, I was listening to your podcast, Brainstorming Basketball, by the way. You didn't
I
even
did
plug
plug
it in
it
the
in the
beginning, but I
beginning.
got you. Nah. Imagine didn't say the actual name. But
He definitely
regardless, well, I didn't hear it. Anyways, Kyle Lowry, right? The reports came out again. Like I heard it in your podcast, and the reports came out again like 2 days ago, saying that Kyle Lowry specifically is saying that if he is going to get traded, he wants to go to Philly. He wants to go home. And to me, I feel like that's a match made in heaven. Like I feel like that's exactly what the Philly needs. You know what I'm saying? He fits the identity, tough nose, um, gritty, like super gritty player. He'll take charges, put his body on the line, get on the floor. It doesn't matter. Like he's gonna go out there and do that. And because he knows he's going home with another chance at another ring, I feel like that's beautiful. He allows, take some of the pressure off of Ben Simmons to where when he can't do some of the pick and roll stuff because he doesn't have a jumper, Kyle Lowry can do that. You know what I'm saying? Kyle Lowry can also step outside and hit shots. To me, it's beautiful. Whether or not they can get it because of that 30 million contract that he has is another discussion. But if we're just gonna say they can get it done, what do you think about that fit?
I think I agree completely. It's match made in heaven. The intangibles, like you mentioned, more than anything, fit. I think Lowry can go on any team and fit. Like he's one of those guys that just he doesn't care about shot attempts. He doesn't care about anything. He's willing to put his body on the line, which in turn inspires other guys to put their bodies on the line and to buy into a winning type of culture. And and then, like you said, taking playmaking responsibilities off of Ben, off of Joel a little bit. It's a match made in heaven, and I really think that Lowry is a match made in heaven for almost any contender. I'm a huge fan of his, but especially Philly, and being from Philly and competing for a championship. Which, by the way, I understand Toronto needs like maybe one big piece, but I still kind of am in on Toronto too, which is why I'm kind of disappointed that if they were to trade him, I still want to see them compete. But yes, match made in heaven. I agree.
You're higher in Toronto than us, man. That's
Uh,
crazy.
t- I, I think we'd be. I don't think we're contending obviously anymore, but I think we can still compete even without Lowry. I think I was looking up. We're 16-1 without Lowry in the past like
Jeez.
year and a half, and this year we're 7-1 without him. So we obviously know how good Lowry is. So that those stats don't necessarily make sense, but their stats, right? We've won games without him. So I think we can still compete. I can still think we can still be a playoff team. But as a Raptor fan, I want to see Lowry go compete personally. And I think, as both of you had already mentioned, like there's no better fit for him. And he can fit anywhere. He can shoot. He obviously defends. He can defend a lot bigger than his actual size. And he plays hard. And I think if you swap him for a guy like Danny Green, obviously in terms of starting lineup, I think you get way better because uh, Danny Green is garbage. Can't dribble, can't pass. He can shoot and he can defend every other night. So I think when you add a guy like Lowry to that mix and he can defend, maybe he can even defend a small forward. You won't need to, but I'm saying push comes to shove. He can defend those guys. You have Ben Simmons, who's a 6'10" point guard. When your point guard's 6'10", you can essentially plug a lot of guys who are undersized into your lineup, and it's going to work. So I think it's match made up. I think it makes them way better. Does it make them better than Brooklyn? I don't think so, but then I'd be willing to look at them as a real competitor.
For me, the only thing is like, how do we get it done? And I seen put it in the trade machine. Like you would need Danny Green coming back, and then you'd basically mean like Thibault,
You
Maxi.
don't want that guy.
You know what I'm saying? or you would have to do like a 3-team trade where somebody gets a first round pick and then you throw in the matching salary, whatever the case is. But that's one of those things where I'm saying, as a Philly fan and as a Raptor fan, because as you mentioned, I want to see Laurie go out and, do him. Like, go win, fam. Win again. You know what I'm saying? And for me, it would be like buttering both sides of my bread, fam. Like, I'm seeing my guy go out and win, and I'm gonna see my team get it done. So I really hope that gets completed for sure.
Crazy.
Can you imagine? This guy's Armand. He's a fan of two teams in the Atlantic Division. Imagine that.
That's the nature of being from Toronto and being a Philly fan. Shout out to Allen Iverson. That had nothing to do with me.
Right.
Like Allen Allen pumped the culture into me. That's all it is.
Crazy. One more question before we move on to the next complete subject. As you said, the East is really top heavy. Honestly, the East is kind of bad this year, honestly. But just given the records, I don't know if you guys know the records off the top of your head, but do you expect any teams on the lower end of the table to get better? Just off the top of my head, I think Boston will get better. Um, but I think they're gonna get better via trade. I think Danny Ainge is finally gonna do his job and use that trade exception to improve the roster because I think he's on the hot seat if he doesn't, right? Like he has to. Obviously, I think Miami's going to get better as they get healthier because, as I said before, coronavirus kind of decimated their team earlier on in the season. And Indiana, I think Indiana gets better. Hopefully, Karras will be able to return after the All Star break at some point. Sabonis play kind of leveled off after his hot start, but he's still playing well. Brogdon's still kind of doing his thing. They don't have top end talent, but they're a good team with a lot of chemistry. So I think those three teams in particular will improve their record at least. I don't know if they're going to move up the standings much, just given how much of a gap there is between the top four and the rest. But I definitely think those teams are on the upward trend.
I'm gonna go Celtics. I just think they're void of talent, right? They have about four NBA starters on their roster, I'd say, and after that, it's sad. You're playing Daniel Tice and Tristan Thompson together in 2021. That's nuts, right? But it's Jalen Brown who's taken a step and Jason Tatum. So I feel like they have to get it done. Kemba played very well. I think it was Friday night against Indiana, and I just expect him to be better. Right in the last pod we mentioned like his knee is done. Like he's getting old. His contract. I think we all expected his contract to look bad towards the back end of it, but we didn't expect it to look this bad. Right in the second year into it. But I think he'll be better. I think he'll have his moments when they need him, and I think there'll be a team that's a team you don't want to see in the first round. That if they're in the fourth seed or the fifth seed, you don't want to see them. Even if you're in the third seed, like you don't want to see them. I think they're going to be better. They obviously have a trade exception, so looking at the standings naturally, they're the only team where they have a direct line where we can say they can get better without necessarily giving up anything. So I think for me, it's them unquestioned.
Armand, what do you think?
For me, it's two teams. One is Indiana, and that's a huge asterisk team because they have to get healthy, and it also depends on obviously prayers up to Karis LeVert, hoping he's going to progress through this, and then T.J. Warren. Are you going to get bubble T.J. Warren, or are you going to get the rest of his career T.J. Warren? Like, what T.J. Warren are you going to get? Because if you get anything close to bubble T.J. Warren, now you're adding like a borderline star to a team that already has Malcolm Brogdon, Sabonis, Turner, and that's a huge, huge upgrade. But the other team is Atlanta, and I hate using the word hate. I hate Atlanta. I don't like them because Twitter kind of crowned them as like an Eastern Conference like contender kind of before the season without proving jack shit. They didn't prove shit, and people are like, "Oh, Atlanta, watch out for Atlanta." And I was like, "Okay, let's see what Atlanta's got." They haven't done anything, but you look at their roster, we mentioned Boston has like four NBA starters. Atlanta, yes, right now they've been decimated by a bunch of stuff. And I don't even know if Cam Reddish, Kevin Herter, all those guys are starters. But if they get healthy, you add chemistry, which they haven't had all year, talent alone, they should be in above the Bulls, above the maybe the Knicks, but they just haven't had the time to gel together. So I'm looking for Atlanta to pick it up in the second half, and they got Trey Young, who's a borderline. I don't know what you guys think about Trey Young, but
I mean,
offensively,
I'm
superstar.
not rocking. I'm not
Yeah,
rocking.
He's a star. Like
Yes.
So what you can't hide, you can't fake 30 and 10. Like it's hard to fake that. It's the defense. There obviously isn't any, but for me with the Hawks, I think someone on this pod had crowned them as a Eastern
That was your
Conference
boy
playoff
right
team.
here,
I'll let
man.
them
I'm a
run into it
Hawks
if they
fan.
want to,
Come on,
but
man. Come on, man.
I don't.
Ice tray.
I just don't. It doesn't make any sense, right? You sign Danilo Gallinari, who struggles to stay healthy, to come off your bench, right? I like the Capella acquisition in the midseason the year
He's been
before,
hooping.
but yeah, he's been great. But John Collins was at his best as a center, and now you've kind of almost made him redundant. Where now he doesn't play in pick and roll. He's not, and he's just a shooter, right? And he kind of fills in where he can. So I think we all kind of expect the Hawks might move on from Collins, but as it stands, right, I can't look towards the future and say they're going to move him and what are they going to get back. They just haven't been good. DeAndre Hunter, who was playing great, is out for an extended period of time, and I just don't see it working. They still lack defense, and the guys they brought in don't help with that. I thought Rondo would be a big help to this team, and we've barely seen him. So,
Man, you know Rondo doesn't show up until playoffs. They should have knew that
but
too.
you got to get there first, though.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why they
Yeah,
should
so,
have knew that. You knew Rondo
yeah,
was
yeah,
not
that's
going to
true.
show up. Like
I,
they should
yeah,
have knew
I
that.
just, I'm just looking around at this roster and I don't like it. And they're still young, but and obviously they can get better. But I just don't like what I see. Um, Danilo Gallinari is the biggest problem for me. That contract that they signed. I think it's just a bad decision by a bad organization.
It's not fully
period.
guaranteed though, so let's cut them some slack. Last year's only partially guaranteed, so they're not on the hook for the full contract. It still is a bad contract, but he dropped like 38 the other night. Turned back the clock on some guys. He's still garbage though.
And he might be gone tomorrow. We don't know. Like, that's my issue with him. Like you bring in a guy to come off your bench for that type of money, and your team's not good. You got to be addressing specific needs for me.
Now, I agree with the Pacers. Like to me, the teams that we expect to definitely bounce back would have to be the Pacers, given health, and that would it's like when you're talking about if they get this trade, if they do this, you know what I'm saying, we that's not like that's smoke. What's not smoke is like man's just coming back. Karis LeVert is scheduled to come back this month in March, and soon after that,
Well, we don't
TJ
know
Warren
that.
is
I have him
supposed
on
to
my
come back
fantasy
as well.
team,
And
and we
even
don't
if
know
No,
that.
no, no,
We
no.
don't know that.
Nah, they said he's still in a boot.
they still he's still in the boot, but like what I'm saying is like if LeVert's supposed to be March, Warren should be April. You know what I'm saying? Like soon
Fair.
after that, So by that time, if they can just tread water and keep progressing, they have a lot of pieces on the team. Like Sabonis, yes, he did tail off, but Sabonis is still a 20 and 10 guy rolling out of his bed. You know what I'm saying? And then you have Turner that's blocking 3 shots a game right now. You have Brogdon is efficient scorer. Guys like the Holiday brothers and TJ McConnell, and it's a bunch of players that you can see where you can see a winning team. Like they're deep if they can get man's back. Karis LeVert, God bless him. Like I really do hope he comes back and he's right back into the fold, taking over that spot. But for right now, like they lost Oladipo basically for nothing. They lost TJ Warren basically for nothing, and the guy who came back, Karis LeVert, hasn't played. So that's so much talent that got ripped away from the team. It's only natural that they were going to fall down. But as they start getting players back, I expect them to rise again.
How do you guys feel about the Hornets?
I feel like, if all honesty, I feel like people are attributing more success to the Hornets because they're fun to watch, right? Like we're watching the Hornets. LaMelo Ball's behind the back pass. He's throwing up. He's making it exciting. Like you know what I mean. But like right now, they're currently sitting in the 10th seed with 15 and 17, which is, in my opinion, a lot better than where I first envisioned them going into the season. So I'll give them credit for that. But
They're one
that
game
don't
out of the
mean
fourth
much,
spot.
man. The whole
by
East
the
is
way.
bad. No, they're still bad.
Right, but that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
but that's a
like,
2-game winning streak, and that's
They
you
could be in
jumping off
fourth
the
to
board.
bottom, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
This is bad. I'm not gonna say that they're good just because.
That's a playoff team to
Come
me.
on,
Nah,
man. What are
they
you talking
they
about,
are a playoff team to
man?
me. Nah, they definitely. And here's what I'm saying. Why they're a playoff team to me, right? It starts with a guy like Gordon Hayward, obviously. Like last week, I said that Gordon Hayward, I wouldn't have him on my All Star team, but he's definitely playing at an All Star level. We know that for a fact. Another guy that's sneakily playing at an All Star level is Terry
Hater.
Rozier. That guy is balling, fam. Like absolutely balling. Like he's not going out there playmaking or anything like that, but he's playing strong defense. You know what I'm saying? He's putting his nose in areas where he's getting opportunities for the defense, and he's flat out hitting, like absolutely hitting. Flamethrower. You toss in Mellow Ball, great at doing what he does as well. And then you have guys like Miles Bridges that's coming off of their bench and giving you energy. Like that's what you need out of your bench players. A guy that's gonna come in and just fuck shit up, dunk on some guys. You know what I'm saying? Like scream at people, like just be active. Like go out there and just be active. To me, they're definitely
You
a
can't
playoff
say
team. Like
definitely, man.
especially in the East as well. I'm putting that. No, no, I'm saying that they're a playoff team. I'm saying that. Just it's a foregone conclusion to me that they're a playoff team because there's a lot of teams in the East right now that I do not see. Like the Magic. I think the Magic are above them.
No, they're
That
not. They're
should
not.
wash
Nah,
away.
Magic are lower. Magic are lower.
Okay,
Magic are
well,
in like 13th. So
I think they're better. They're I to me they're better than the Knicks. They're better than the Bulls. That's already two teams that's above them that I will just automatically push them in. So we'll see.
They're all tied for the same record. Go ahead.
I
Go
think
ahead.
I think that two things with the Hornets. I think that if this is who Malik Monk is going to be the
I
rest of the
didn't even talk
season,
about Malik Monk.
he's
He's
been hooping.
balling. Kentucky
Yes.
Blue, man. God
Um,
damn.
that's huge. If this is who he is, but he's done this at times in his career where all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, Malik Monk is like a hooper, and then all of a sudden he just fades away again. So that's one. And then the
He
second
already
thing
put down
is
the drugs.
the second thing is if Devonte Graham can show up first half of last season, Devonte Graham, I don't know if that player will ever come back. When people were like, "Oh, this guy, is a borderline All Star, Most Improved Player of the Year candidate," all these things. If he can get back to that level, because I agree with everything else. Gordon Hayward, bona fide borderline All Star. Rozier hooping. Lamelo finding his niche in the NBA for sure. All those things are great. Now, if you can add consistent Malik Monk and anything from Devonte Graham that resembles last season, now you got a real playoff team. Not get carried away and say anything more than that, but yes, definitely a playoff team. I think without that,
So,
they're still a
question
playoff team.
though.
And we're back. We're back. Perfect break, man. We're back. Talk more some basketball, man. Um, First discussion was pretty good, but let's switch it over to the Western side of things now. So as you know, the Suns in particular have been playing very well, right? Better than last season, despite the bubble. We all know what they did in the bubble, what they're capable of, but they came into this season and even outperformed that. Shout out to Chris Paul or Devin Booker. So that's the question I got to pose to you guys: who deserves most of the credit for the Suns' success? And I'll pose this to you, Chris.
For me, it's the guy that they added, and the guy that they added is Chris Paul. And what we do know about Chris Paul is wherever he goes, he wins. Right? He may not win the ultimate prize just because of his stature at the end of the day, but when we're talking about regular season ball, regular season play, Chris Paul wins. Period. And where he goes, he brings a certain type of playing style, a certain type of attitude that gets indoctrinated throughout the entire roster. And to me, that's what we're seeing right now with the Suns. Like we're seeing a gritty team, we're seeing a team that's coming up in the clutch, and that is because of Chris Paul. Like that is what he's made of. Yes, they have other players like Bridges that are taking a step forward. But in saying that, you also have other players like Booker who took a slight step back. Aiton took a slight step back. So to me, it's just like the only guy I'm giving, I'm gonna give 80% of the credit to Chris Paul because I know who Chris Paul is, and the moment he came on the roster, he's winning. Yes, they had a 8-0 record in the bubble, but in order for me to actually buy that, you would have to tell me now that Ricky Rubio can get them to where they are right now. And if you're not saying that, then I'm gonna give it to Chris Paul.
listen. Anyone that listens to this podcast knows I'm the Chris Paul guy. When they told me he was washed, I told you he wasn't, and it's no different now. Devin Booker has been great his entire career, but as good as he's been, he has not been able to get them anywhere close to the playoffs. Don't talk to me about a bubble. I don't care. 9 games does not prove anything in the NBA. And we're not going to talk about the bubble as if it was some separate season. It was still 2019, still 2020. The Suns in 2019, 2020 started the year 6-3. And by the time the bubble was done, they were 24, 25-39. So I don't care about hot starts. I don't care about a hot month. What I know is you added Chris Paul and this team got better. So he's not the only reason why they're winning, but he is the reason why they're much better than they were a year ago. And I don't care about Jay Crowder, whoever else you want to talk to me about. It's strictly Chris Paul. He's made it a point. He's proven now. Hornets, Clippers, Houston, OKC, and now the Suns. He's the only common denominator. There's no one else.
I think Chris Paul's leadership is the primary factor for the Suns being where they are. Um, with that being said, Atlanta and Phoenix, Atlanta is the opposite side where I said in the first half, like they have so many guys, but they don't seem to fit or mesh. And the problem with Atlanta is lack of leadership. Whereas in Phoenix, they have like 12 dudes that can hoop. Like Abdul Nader is like having like a career season. They have a ton of guys on their bench that are fighting for minutes, fighting for playing time. That's how a team falls apart, right? And Chris Paul being there and being a leader and bringing that vet mentality of like you got to do what you have to do for the betterment of the team. If they didn't have that kind of presence, I think that this team would be a lot more dysfunctional because this is a business. Guys are competing for livelihood. And for them to put aside egos and to come together and build something, I think it speaks volumes to who Chris Paul is as a leader and Monty Williams, but specifically Chris Paul.
Me personally, I'm always about the bucket, so I'm gonna give it a split. I'm gonna say 70-30, just because I know what Chris Paul brings, right? Like, obviously, I think he proved that last season in OKC. That team had no business being near the playoff hunts, and somehow they were launched. They were positioned right in the middle of it. Like, I think they were fifth seed, if I'm not mistaken. Um, with no faults or anything like that, no major injuries, just Chris Paul coming to the team and giving it life, bringing them to where they want to go. So I'll give him 7% of the credit, but like his numbers aren't gaudy. He's not putting up the popcorn numbers. And again, he may not have to for the team to succeed, but someone has to. And I feel like with Booker doing what he's doing, although it's a bit of a step back from the year before, he still is putting up pretty decent numbers, if not great numbers. And then Aiton's doing some of the heavy lifting. Mikal Bridges is obviously taking a step forward. So I do want to attribute some of the success to those guys as well. But I'm gonna give 70% of the credit to Chris Paul because Chris Paul is who he is. Like we know, we've seen this. He's done it year after year. He's making guys better around him. Like it's not hard to give him the credit that he deserves, but you still gotta acknowledge there's four other mans on the roster that are playing a lot better or doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms
Yeah,
of a statistical point.
yeah, I don't think he's definitely not out there by himself, right? He has talent around him. It's just I think when the opposition goes on a 10-0 run, right? 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you look to the side and Chris Paul's cool, like it's that confidence that he's instilling in guys because he knows how to win games. And you can't quantify that, which is why his numbers aren't going to look great. But if you pay attention to the game and if you watch the game long enough, you know that there's something there. And as you said, Mikal Bridges, he's guarding the best player on the court. He's taking a step. He's shooting over 50% from the field, over 40 from deep. You have Aiden, who's not scoring as much, but he's doing his thing on the glass. And Booker, we know he's a bucket, right? But it's that confidence that he instills. You can't get that in other places. And as Armand referenced with the Hawks, like again, they're in similar situations, but Trey hasn't gotten to the point in his career where he can instill that confidence in his teammates. And nor should he, right? He's what, year three? So it's just, and I think we were kind of looking to Rondo to be that guy, but he's obviously not as talented as Chris Paul this late in his career. So it's it's all Chris Paul for me. Sorry to say. They do play well, but I just look at this team. If you remove Chris Paul, as Chris said, and you put Ricky Rubio on that team, they're right back where they were last year, pre-bubble.
I agree. I agree. Let's move forward because we do got a couple things we're gonna talk about before we wrap it up over here. So one more before we start talking about the All Star reserves and the selection process. Um, Dallas obviously has taken a step back since last year. They were firmly entrenched in the playoff race last year. Now they're kind of looking for their way in. They might be looking to get into the playing game, but right now there's a swirling discussion on NBA Reddit to see whether or not Dallas should consider moving Porzingis, given his injury history, play, whatever it may be. They're just kind of raising the discussion to see whether or not it's time to move on from him. Me personally, I don't feel like this is as easy as people are making it seem. Like Porzingis' contract is not favorable given his injury history, and you're not just gonna move him without giving up an asset. And I don't think that Dallas is in a position to do that because you're a young team. Yeah, you got to the playoffs last year. You did well. Luka magic happens, a real thing, whatever it may be. But don't get too ahead of yourself. You're not a top 3 seed by any means. You may have a top 5 or top 10 player, but your team's not up to par. We've said this in the past. You have a lot of other things that you need to work on your team before you just start saying that I'm gonna mail it in or trade off this guy because he's not part of the program. Like developing teams take time, and although you have a player that may be ahead of his time, you still need to work out the kinks before you just boot him out like that. And I wouldn't even boot him if you have to give an asset up to do it. So I feel like the jury's still out. Like obviously Porzingis hasn't lived up to his name in New York, in Dallas, but I'm not ready to just close the book on him yet. I feel like you still need to give it some time before you decide to make a major move like that. Armand, what do you think?
Completely agree. I think that Luca being amazing right off the bat kind of sped up their timeline, but he's in year 3. What's the rush here? LeBron being the Luca comparison or whatnot for career arc, it took LeBron a while to figure out what kind of players work best with him, right? So Luca, I think, needs to have that same level of time to figure out, all right, this is the type of player that works well with me. Porzingis has had injuries, and like you said, it's going to take an asset to get off him. This is not a year that they're going to be competing for a title. They're 500. They're a mediocre team that can score well, and they go through ebbs and flows. And with that being said, take your time and see what Luka Doncic needs to be the best version of himself. Be it Porzingis or not, I don't think it's a decision to make until at least the offseason. Then you can re-examine that potential trade.
Okay, so here's a problem, right? You said what's the rush? To me, they're pressed for time in two aspects, right? Number one, focusing on Porzingis. He has a time clock on him. He's about to expire. So you can say, you know, we want to see how it works, this year and then maybe next year. But what we do know is as the years go by, his price goes down. Like he's a depreciating asset. And he's not going to get healthy as he gets older. He's not going to get more mobile as he gets older. He's not going to be able to do certain amount of the things that he's doing now. And he's also 7'3". He's a big man. He's a 7'3" big man. Those guys we know, like in the same way that we talk about Embiid, Kristaps is even worse because we see every year he's not there. You know what I'm saying? He's never there when it matters. So for me, it's like you gotta get off of him the moment you feel like, all right, the moment you start questioning it, it's time to go and look. To me, when it comes to Kristaps, and then the second part is I do agree with the LeBron James comparisons, just in retrospect to like the career arc and what he's doing at this age. But the reason why you have to rush with Luca is because what LeBron did is now forcing you to rush, right? You really only have 5 years with these players before they get it in their mind that they're leaving. And it's easy to be like, oh, but he doesn't have that in him, but we saw it. Did Kawhi have it in him? He was supposed to be the perfect Spur. Now he's gone. You know what I'm saying? And whatever the reasoning behind him leaving, these players can leave. And if Luca gets to the point where he starts to feel like LeBron did, it's all on me. Like everything is me. I'm always out here. I'm by myself. As much as you want to say, Luca doesn't have that in him. He loves Dallas or whatever the case is. What we know about great players is they love their legacy more. They love what you were going to refer to them. How are you going to look at them 10, 15 years down the line more? And nothing is going to do that for you but a championship. I don't care about how beloved you are in a city. When the rest of the country, when the rest of the basketball world is saying, how was Luca as a player? You need the ring. And these players really, they give teams 5 years, maybe 6 years, and then they have their decision made up in their head whether or not I'm going to stay or I'm going to leave. And if you want to sign that extension for Luca, it's a mandatory thing.
Yeah, like more than 3 year timeline with an NBA player is if you're an organization, you look at them past 3 years, I think you're making a serious mistake, right? We know restricted free agency on these rookie contracts. So essentially, you kind of have them under team control for 7 to 8 years. But it's just not true because the moment I want out, I'm gone. And as Chris said, we're all gonna look at Doncic and say he's not that type of person until he is. There's been countless players who we never thought had that in them. Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, even PG to some respects, and they've been moving around. And it's not going to change. Right now, Luka is the ultimate star in the sense that he will shoulder all of the blame when they lose. You can only do that for so long. He may be built to do it longer than others, but again, at some point, if they can't get any better, he's going to reach a breaking point. And I think Kristaps is not going to help him get to where he needs to go. As you already alluded to, like he can't stay healthy for one, right? And his he's good when he's on the court, but that the way that team's constructed, it's just them two. Outside of that, you're looking for Tim Hardaway Jr. to save you, and guys like Maxi Kleber, who's played decent, Dorian Finney-Smith. Like they're void of talent, right? How they were able to put up a historic offense last year, I really don't understand, but they did it, and I think it's kind of adjusted people's perspectives on the roster. But if you look at the team names, if you just go down that roster and look at the team names, you know they're not supposed to be good. And I think Rob's last year had made an emphasis on that. Is like, as good as they've been, historic offense, whatever it is, the more you look at that team, you realize they are just not good. They don't have talent on that roster. And we can do the fit thing, but it's looking like Doncic is just out there on his ones carrying that team to whatever he can. And you can only go so far.
Yeah, you can only go so far because again, that right now Porzingis is slated to make 29 this year, 31 the next year. You're not moving that. So shuffle the cards, see what you have, experiment. You drafted a bunch of rookies this year, give them some time. Like, don't rush the process, right? Like, don't rush the process. Yes, Luka is good and he's great, but he's not going anywhere right now. Give it a year, right? See what you can do. And if you have to, try to move him in the offseason and attach an asset. I'm just not one of those guys that love to make big moves in the middle of a season, especially at the deadline, right? And it's not necessarily going to better you moving forward. I understand if you're a contender, you just want to, fill out your roster, whether it be through the buyout market or making small trades for second round pick, insignificant things. I understand that. But that is a pivotal point of your offense. Like he is a pillar in the team.
Okay, but Rob,
Is
right?
he? Is he though?
How long before Porzingis' contract starts looking like Kevin Love?
I'm not saying that it won't, but what I'm saying is you don't trade a man making 25% of your cap mid-season.
Why not?
That's,
if you can get something back,
you're not getting something. You're not getting.
But yo, to me, it's like I know you're not gonna get any. Like the value is going to depreciate as time goes on. He's gonna start looking like Kevin Love, where you literally cannot trade him unless you're attaching picks. That's not where Porzingis is right now.
I think
he's already there still.
Nah, I don't think so. I don't think.
Yo, he's under contract till 2023, like 2024. Sorry, he has a player option in 2023, 2024. That's a long time from now. And as you said, we know like how his health is going to look. We know it's not going to get any better, right? And if you're talking about a guy under contract making upwards of 30 million to 2024, I think you have to attach something right now. When I'm taking on that much money,
then why wouldn't you trade him now then? Because all I'm hearing is it's going to get harder to do it.
Right.
We can all agree on that. And if you're saying that he's going to be a guy who's around until 2023, 2024, that's pretty much when Luka is going to start making his decisions. And you're not going to be able to get your team any better because you have that big cap number on it.
So what's stopping you from making the trade in the offseason? Again, I could be wrong. You are all right in your opinion to say that you want to make the trade mid-season. I just don't see the value in making the trade mid-season for a man making 25% of your cap. Wait till the offseason to flush out a full offer when everybody is on the table trying to get stuff done. And that's when the most thoughtful trades get done. I feel like a lot of the trades that get done, the trade deadline, are just they're under pressure. They're made under pressure and distress because
that's how you catch a man lacking though.
But nobody's taking on Porzingis like that.
You never know. You never know. You can have one team that's saying, bro, like 7-3 stretch 5. How would that look? Like this, I agree with you in the offseason.
At the end of the season.
No, because in the offseason, a more fleshed out mindset, man's are going to be calm. They're going to be like, nah, but we can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you catch a team lacking. That's all I'm saying. Maybe you do. And if you do it.
I think you listen, obviously, but I also hear you guys because I think they're like 2 games out of playoffs. So they could easily make the playoffs, right? trading a guy that we don't expect them when they make that trade to get any talent to make them better. Like it doesn't really make sense in the scope of this season, right? What you can do is just ride it out. Hopefully your team performs better and hopefully you make the playoffs. Like that's good enough for them. And then the offseason, I don't think his price goes down between now and the offseason, if I'm being honest with you.
Can't.
So yeah, I'd say wait, but I think they should entertain. I think they should start planning a future that doesn't
include him.
involve KP. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Fair. Let's move on to our last subject of today, man. Armand, I'm gonna pose this to you because I know you're real excited, man. The All Star reserves they finally came out, and I know as a Bulls fan, you guys haven't had an All Star since way back. When was the last All Star? Jimmy Butler, Jimmy G buckets.
It has to be, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while,
Yeah.
man. But your boy Levine finally got in. So what do you what do you think about the All Star reserves, just generally, or even as a Bulls fan?
This is like when you're like 10 years old and you play like in a basketball league and then you get a participation trophy. I hate this shit. Like, what the hell is this? Okay, like we're celebrating an all-star. This is what poverty franchises do. Shout out Zach Levine. He's having a great year. We're celebrating an all-star like it's a freaking Eastern Conference Finals berth. Our fans should be embarrassed. All I've seen for the past 2 years, I lived in Chicago last year actually, and last year and this year, the highlight of the Bulls season has been campaigning for a freaking player to make an all-star team. We should be ashamed of ourselves. This is embarrassing. Again, shout out Zach Levine. You're having a great year. This is nothing against him. It's against the concept of your franchise's the whole freaking like we played the Sixers last week on ESPN, and all that they're talking about our franchise is this guy and his all-star bid. That's when you're not doing enough as a team. With that being said, I'm very glad he made it over Trey Young because Trey Young, I think, has a lot more to work with on that roster and is making a lot less of it. And if you take Zach off of the Bulls, I'm probably the biggest Kobe White fan that you guys will ever talk to in your lives.
Kobe White.
But honestly, if you take Zach off of this Bulls team, I think we're like 4 wins on the season. I think we're the worst team in basketball. So shout out Zach, but we got to stop with this participation medal trophy BS. We got to account for what matters, which is making the playoffs and making noise in the playoffs.
But here's the thing, Armand. I feel like you got to walk before you run. Like
Fair.
first, we celebrated Chris Bosh making All Star. Then we put an Atlantic Division title in our rafters. You got to start somewhere.
Oh,
Like the TJ Ford days, the Jorge Garbajosa days, we
Oh
had
my-
to lift the Atlantic title, right? And that's
that's
back when you
10
got,
years though until you like that's
yeah, walk
05
before you
to
run.
15.
You got to build up. You got to build up. You guys have been down for a while, right? Obviously, part of the Bulls' prime got robbed, or like one of their best teams got robbed with injuries with Derrick Rose. But in terms of the reserves, like I think East specifically, I think they got it fairly right. Obviously, we can debate as long as we want about guys like Julius Randle and Bam Adebayo, but Julius Randle's having a great year, and I can't see anything wrong with that. Bam's been great, but his team hasn't been great either. And obviously, looking at it now, we're talking about 1 and 2 games separating these teams from being in the playoffs or out of the playoffs. But at the time, they were in the playoffs and they've surprised people. You can't. Julius Randle's been amazing, and Vooch.
Whoa, chill,
I think
amazing. Come on, man.
He's
Come
been
on.
amazing. He's been
Amazing?
He's been the best player on that team. He's been the best player on that team.
Cool. I hear
And-
that. Yeah.
The Vooch Sabonis debate, I hear that one, but I'm just a Vooch fan. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the NBA. I think Sabonis is having a great season, but something about Vooch that I just like, and I think he's stepped up this late in his career too. Like he's supposed to be declining. He signed a big contract, and I feel like he's only gotten better since then.
I feel like Vooch isn't that old. Isn't he like 27?
Isn't he 30?
Yeah, he's 30. He's approaching 30. He's kicking the door now. So like he's kicking
I
on
think he's
the
30.
30 door. He's been
I
around
feel
for a
like,
while. Like he started off.
yeah,
Go ahead, Rob.
For me,
He's been
it's
around for
like
a while. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
yeah. For me, it's just like I can't have Julius on my team because how I look at it, bro. At the end of the year, when you're looking at who made or like whatever, like 5 years from now, you're looking at who made the All Star team. That just looks wrong, bro. Like you look at the team, you're like, what is going on with that? How did Julius make? And then you have to run to Basketball Reference to see what type of numbers he put up. Like that's how bad it looks for me. Like we know for a fact Bam is better. We know what happened to the Heat. It wasn't no fault of Bam. His entire team got decimated by COVID. He's in fucking Miami, Florida, the central of COVID-19. Like it's that has nothing to do with Bam to me, and Bam is so much better than Julius. It's a joke. It's like those players are not comparable. No GM, no fan is taking. You ask
On
any
the
New York
season
Knicks
though.
man right now, and everyone is taking Bam. Every single one of
It's the
them. If
season.
they
It's
said
one
take the
season.
All Star or the Bam, okay. But as I said, Bam is having a great season. Like
Yeah, he
you
is.
can see his game flourishing. You know what I'm saying? Where
So was
he's
Julius
doing
Randle.
way more. But this is why when I go back, we know for a fact that Bam is 100% better than Julius. 100, right? And by the end of the year, what's going to happen is the Heat are now healthy and you see them starting to climb. And by the end of the year, they will be above the Knicks. And now what? Now we just look like idiots for doing that, you know? But that's why I didn't have Julius on my bid, so it is what it is. Um, in terms of the other players, Trey Young had no business being on the list, and I'm happy it happened this way because he goes from a starter to missing it. And now I hope that he looks in the mirror and figures out what he needs to do to get back there because he got in off hype. That's what he got in off last year, hype. And he did not get in off of his own merits, basically, to
That's
say I'm an
cap.
NBA All
The
Star.
numbers
Okay,
speak
He
for
I'm not.
didn't,
themselves.
fam.
30 and
He
10.
didn't.
30 and 10.
Yes, 30 and 10. He didn't though because that team was the epitome of dog shit in the NBA. They were dog shit. Like so, the fact that you got an All Star starting nod was fuckery, bro. I'm happy
Yeah,
he's off the list.
definitely.
Looking on the other side, I really have no qualms about it. I thought that things should have made it. Booker should have
Who?
made it.
Okay, okay.
But then to take off Booker, you had to take off Zion. I believe that was the only thing to do. And Zion approaching like the last day to vote, he was on like a binge of 30-point games. Like he was 65% on 32 points per game. Like so, he kind of shirt his shot up. And do you really want to give the Suns two All Stars? Like they weren't that type of team. But he got in anyways. So all ends well. So it's all good. But yeah, like Trey Young didn't deserve it. Zach Levine. Now I can switch my thoughts on him. Now I don't have to say the clutchest thing he ever did was beating Aaron Gordon in the dunk off. I can say the clutchest thing he ever did was making an All Star appearance. So level up, fam. Take a little step higher. I rate it. He's playing great basketball. I'm a fan.
I'm a fan too, but at the same time, I feel like the All Star selection process is a bit flawed, right? Because me and Kev were having this discussion earlier. Like they move the goalposts sometimes, right? Like they pick and choose. They have their favorites, and you know what? It goes right back to what you said about Julius Randle. If you look at Julius Randle, remove the name, he's an All Star. His team's in the playoffs. He's averaging 20 and above 20, 10 with like 5 assists, fairly efficiently. You put Julius names on those numbers, and all of a sudden, man don't
Now
want to
there's a
hear it.
problem.
There's a problem. Come on, man. There's a problem. People just don't like certain people, and that's why they're always going to be in these bad type of conversations, even though they might be deserving these of an All Star nod. Like for instance, like we have the Spurs above 500 right now. DeMar DeRozan's putting up peak numbers. No, not even blinking an eye. Nobody even mentioned him, right? He deserves a nod. But then, as me and Kev were saying earlier, Boston's in friggin' ninth seed right now on a losing streak.
He gets two.
Their team's dog shit, and they get two. So it's like, yo,
Gets
everybody
two.
has their favorites. The coaches definitely have their favorites, and
Well,
I'm
to
not gonna
me,
lie. This year
Julius
they hit
made
it better
it.
than the others. Huh?
Julius made it because of the coach. Like I think it's more of a Tom Thibodeau award for Julius than it is Julius to me. Like I feel like the coaches looked at the Knicks and said, "Nah, Tom is doing a great job. Who's the player that's doing the most on that team?" Like,
Not
So
yo. Give
you're
Julius
but
his
telling me
fam,
Tom
flowers,
Thibodeau went out
man.
there and dropped 25 and 11? Tom Thibodeau did that?
what I'm saying is coaches are the ones that vote on the reserves. So coaches are
Mhm.
looking
Yeah.
at, you know what I'm saying, doing who's doing what. And base Julius needs to walk into Tom Thibodeau's office and say thank you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I see it. Just say thank you, and you don't have to give it a mushy thing. Just be like, "Yo, don't know, like thank you, fam. Like I
His
appreciate
knees
it."
are hurting. He's
Because
gonna feel his knees
he
after the season.
definitely pulled some strings behind the scenes. But hey, I was happy for him. I'm not even trying to disrespect Julius either, because when I saw that video when he was like looking up on the big screen and his family was congratulating him and all of that type of stuff, like this is a Kentucky Blue guy, like I'm never gonna try and denigrate a Kentucky Blue legend. So shout out to him. I
Legend.
just thought
Oh
Bam.
my
I just
gosh.
thought Bam, another Kentucky Blue, deserved it more than he did. So
To respond to you, Robs, in terms of the selection process, I think it's extremely flawed because you look at Devin Booker, he's been putting up numbers for like 3-4 years now, right? And every year he struggles to make it. And last year he got in because Dame said, "I'm not playing," right? Because he was hurt. He hurt his groin. This year they told Devin Booker, the only reason why you're not making it in is because you're not winning. Now he's winning, and if it wasn't for an injury again, he's not there. So I I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if we'll ever get to an ironclad, rules that you have to, or stipulations, things that you have to achieve to be an all-star, but the process is definitely flawed because you can look across the board and see comparable numbers everywhere. Trey Young started the all-star game. Bradley Beal didn't even make it last year, en route to averaging like 30 a game, doing the same thing Trey Young was doing. So it's a weird mix of the fans, obviously, and the coaches who sometimes make questionable decisions themselves. But I think they got it fairly right this year. Aside from the Booker
I
thing, I
agree.
think Spurs kind of took a L in that by not getting All Star. When we look to the Celtics now, they obviously have two All Star caliber players putting up two All Star numbers, but it's like your team's bad. So where do we draw the line here, or is it just because we know they're the Celtics and we know who Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum are, so it's cool, and we know the names?
I think Celtics is a bit of a unique situation just because I think Tatum was getting in regardless. To be
Yeah,
honest with you, I think JB, the way he started the season, it was so hard to ignore, and he made himself known on the scene that it was almost like you stamped his name from early. So I don't really think the Celtics record really played a role in deciding whether or not those two were all stars. But again, I do think that the coaches have their favorites, right? Like they know who they like, they know who they don't like, and the numbers can sometimes play a factor. Well, they do play a factor, obviously, but they might play a deciding factor sometimes. But they have their favorites. Like when I heard that Donovan Mitchell was on the borderline of making the All Star team, you already know how I feel about Don Mitch. I was pissed off because I'm like, he has a number one seed. Granted, the numbers aren't high as hell, but come on, like you know what I mean? Like, what more does he
we
need to do
talking
to get the
and
All
we
Star
talking
nod?
about MVP. That's your MVP. We're talking about
No, it's
MVP.
not,
And
yo.
this
that's not
guy
what he says.
and this guy and there's a discussion on this guy can even make the all-star team. Like I love basketball, bro.
Nah,
Like
I think he was
everything
penciled
comes
in
full circle.
100%.
You see what I'm saying? Like
I think he was penciled
everything
in
comes
still.
full circle, fam. Everything comes full circle. But carry on.
You see how people just love to twist the words. It's not what I said, but nonetheless, he made the All Star team. That's my boy Spider Mitchell, man. Come on, shout out him.
Yeah, but yo, man, we're
Uh,
talking about Donovan, Mike Conley, Donovan.
No way they came with Mike Conley. Still, you're
Fam,
talking
that's what,
shit.
no,
Bro.
bro. I swear to
Mike Conley
God.
was in the
You're
talks. He
gonna
was
go
in the
show
Yo,
me some
talks.
one.
Armand, you weren't here. Were you not hearing Mike
I
Conley's
heard
name in the discussion?
in a lot of
Oh,
different
Donovan
NBA
Mitchell?
podcasts, they're mentioning Mike Conley. I was like, excuse
Ah,
me, this is Donovan Mitchell's team. What?
thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you. It's Don Mitchell's
I
I'm
don't know
not.
team.
if it's Donovan Mitchell's team. I don't know if it's Mitchell's team, but he's the All Star for sure.
there we
We
go.
have a
I'm
we have
just
a
saying.
running
There
argument
was.
on this pod about who the better players on that team, Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell. So
Oh God,
it's
I I despise Rudy Gobert. I don't care what he's doing this
Ah.
year.
Oh,
I'm
come
I'm
on.
not a I'm
So
not
you're
a
biased. You're biased. I don't even want to. You're biased. It's okay. You're biased. It's
Don
alright.
Mitch, man. Simple.
It's
You
okay.
put the ball in the
Donovan
basket.
Mitch, Mike Conley.
Finally, some real basketball opinions. You put
I
the ball
genuinely
in the
never heard that,
basket.
but I'll take your guys' word for it. Still. That's
uh,
crazy.
we don't
2000,
know, bro.
2018 against the Rockets. I understand people have down series. The man got
I know.
outplayed by Clint Capella. Clint Capella made Rudy Gobert look like a bum, like a certified bum. And I can't get that out of my head until he does it for me in the playoffs, like consistently and is a factor. Sorry to get off topic. He's having a great year. He's having a great year. He's had a lot of good years. Let's see it in the playoffs.
Well, he
I
played
remember
well
that series.
last
He
year
got
in the
ran off the
playoffs.
court.
So
He got ran off the
Yeah.
court that
no,
year.
last year in the playoffs he did like he had to trek Jokic. I thought he was doing his thing out there last year,
He
but
didn't play better than Don Mitch.
He
yeah, but
definitely
like
didn't play better than Mitchell.
he
Ah,
definitely didn't
okay.
play better than Don Mitch. But my stance is still that Rudy is the number one most important player on that team.
One
That's
man
my
was
thing.
boxing out. One man was dropping 50 pieces. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what else to say. One man is going toe to toe, dropping 50 every other game, and one man is boxing out.
Should have won then.
Yeah, you got it this time. Still, you got
Come
it this
on, man.
time, still.
You
Well,
should have won.
that's a
But
discussion for another day.
hey, man,
Come
when
on.
you're titling the pod, Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, we just don't know, fam. We just don't know.
That's crazy.
Man.
That's crazy. But that's all I had on the docket for today. Do you guys have anything generally you want to speak about before we wrap it up?
I
Man,
appreciate you guys having me on. This was a blast, and hopefully the Chicago Bulls beat the Raptors tonight, so we can move into. I don't even know where we are now. Like you guys said,
oh, that got
10th and
postponed
4th,
apparently.
huh?
Apparently, that game got postponed. Shout out to
Really?
Yeah.
Portland. Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, dang
Yeah.
it!
Apparently,
What?
that
It got
game's
postponed?
postponed.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
got the update from Bleacher Report.
Dang it! I wanted to be in the 5th seed today. It's okay. We'll be in 9th or 10th for another few days. Then we'll get a little win streak and jump back up to 5th. But yes, thank you guys for having me. Seriously, appreciate it.
Yeah, shout out your pod. Shout out pod. Where can they find your pod at? Streaming platforms, YouTube, wherever you guys. Shout it out.
Appreciate it. Brainstorming Basketball is the podcast name. You can find me on Instagram at Armani Buckets. And again, I cannot wait to have you guys on the podcast coming up this week. And yes, looking forward to that. So thank you guys.
Likewise, man. Likewise. Kev, Chris, what are you guys saying?
Yeah, thank you, Armand, for coming on. It's been great conversation. I think for all listeners out there, like I listened to his pod. It's great. I enjoyed the content a lot. I think it's a lot similar to ours, a bit similar, but it's basketball and it's in-depth basketball. So that's the best part. Once you get that, it's an easy listen. It's a good listen. So again, thank you for coming on. It's been great, and look forward to joining your podcast in the near future.
Yeah, yo, and hold your head up, man. As I mentioned before, like the clutchest thing that Zach Levine has ever done now is made the All Star team,
There we
upgrading
go.
it from beating Aaron Gordon in the dunk off. Blessings.
Blessings, man. Make sure you guys go check out Brainstorming Basketball podcast. Again, I really appreciate your audio. Your audio's crisp. Chris, we're striving. We're getting there. We're all on the same level. So I really do appreciate you guys coming on today. Obviously, we have the regulars, Kevin, Chris, and Armand. Thank you for joining us at such an early time. I know it wasn't easy, but we do appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed. Um, but for today, that's all we got. It's the Hardwood Report, available on all streaming platforms. Wherever you listen to it, like, comment, subscribe, 5 stars, upvote, whatever you need to do, get it done. Share it to a friend. We're really trying to share this content and move it as fast as possible. You can also find us on YouTube at the Hardwood Report, on Instagram, all over, man. Wherever you need to look, we're there. Even TikTok, right? So don't worry about it. We're gonna continue coming with some content, and as you said, next week hopefully we'll be joining Armand's podcast, Brainstorming Basketball, so you can hear us there. And moving forward, we're hoping to get some more guest features on the podcast. But until then, take care, and we'll talk to you guys next time. You stopped it, Kev, or oh?